Hey, this is Keith. I wanted to give you a bit of an update on the 185th annual meeting of the Baptist Convention of Maryland and Delaware. That's the 2021 BCMD annual meeting that I went to yesterday. Today's Tuesday, and as some of you know, I was co-author on a resolution to address the current issues associated with sexual abuse in the SBC. And like a lot of conventions, state conventions, we're seeking to make statements and to address issues within our own organizations on this issue. So this is mostly focused on people who are affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention, people who are within Baptist Convention, Maryland and Delaware, but mostly I'm speaking to people from my own church friend group who know me and who I've discussed these things with. I'm also speaking to pastors from the Eastern Baptist Association. I'm the interim executive director of that organization, and so while I may not have spoken and acted in the convention meeting as the director of the EBA, I certainly want to give an update so that EBA pastors know what's going on. So let me frame this a couple of different ways. The most Baptist organizations are operating according to Robert's Rules of Order, which are parliamentary procedure. You need a certain set of ground rules when you have a very large meeting going on, because a large group of people all shouting, trying to accomplish some purpose. That's just right. That's a mob. That's not a business meeting. A business meeting has rules. So we operate according to Robert's Rules of Order, and that means that there are two main ways that people get things done within a gathered assembly like that. One is a motion, and a motion says, I move that the organization do something, okay? That somebody do something, and if it's voted on, then the organization does it. There's another form of getting resolution, okay? And a resolution is a way of expressing a moral opinion about something, about a social issue, about a problem in the past. We pass resolutions generally at every single meeting where we say we're appreciative of the organization that hosted us. Yesterday we met in a great, really big church, and so we passed a resolution that said we're so thankful for First Baptist Church of Laurel, Maryland, and it's true, we are. And so we just signify that in a very formal way because that is our tradition. That's the way. That's the way that the SBDC has been doing this for quite a long time. I apologize. I got a phone call in the middle of this, so I'm setting my phone to airplane mode. So resolutions are not binding. This is from the Constitution of the BCMD. They're not binding on the convention, local associations, local congregations, or individual Baptists. Instead, what a resolution for um, a way to express the opinion of the overwhelming majority of messengers present. Okay, so what happens is something happens, and we can put together a resolution that says here's how we feel about that. That can then be used to accomplish different purposes. Like we can then use that resolution to say, hey, this is the way that we felt in 2021. These are the kind of things that we want to do in 2022. Or a, a church can, a pastor can go back to his church and say, hey, this is an issue. This is how we feel about it. Let's talk about it. Do we agree? And then let's act accordingly. This is one of those resolutions that I think is helpful in that way. It can be used by pastors to help their churches understand an issue. It can also be used for leaders within our organization to understand what it is that we expect them to do without ordering them around and nailing them down to specific. So here's okay. Let me just kind of wrap this all up and explain what it is that we tried to do here. We wrote a resolution. It was posted online, and what happened is a number of people, not many, came back directly and talked to us. The authors of this resolution, there were 8 people who signed it, and we all included we all included our email addresses and where we're from. And most of us didn't receive any feedback. What we did see was there were some comments on Facebook. Some other people said that they received phone calls and they called. We had only one person who really engaged us directly. Now, here's why I'm so proud of the main author of this resolution, Brad O'Brien, a pastor at Jesus Our Redeemer Church in Baltimore. What he did was when he heard that a brother had issues with the resolution, he contacted that brother directly, and then what we did was we rewrote what we were submitting, and we handed it back in, and we said, hey, can we substitute this resolution for the one that we had submitted earlier? Because there's just SBC politics about this. A lot of people talking, things keep happening, and so we submitted a different resolution. Now, here's why I think that's better. Our original resolution was written when it was uncertain what the National Convention was going to do, whether or not the executive committee was going to waive attorney-client privilege and submit documents that the task force that's working on a national level was interested in. And so we wrote it in a very particular way that was saying, hey, we affirm that, and we want that to happen. There are many people who don't like the politics of it, and they felt that they couldn't sign on because they felt that the resolution was either divisive or that it reflected poorly on individuals within our state. And so that was one objection. The second one is there are people who are not sure that the way in which our national task force is going to go about its business is the exact right way. And so we had written in our original resolution that we wanted people to overwhelmingly affirm the motion to waive attorney-client privilege. And there are people who are in support of reform and support of protecting people, and they're in support of everything, but they don't feel like they can say with a clear conscience that that vote to waive attorney-client privilege was the absolute best thing that we could do. Quite honestly, having received that feedback, I'm one of them. I don't believe that waiving attorney-client privilege is the absolute truest and best thing that we could have done. I question that because I honestly don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand insurance. I don't understand some of the dynamics of a large organization, and I would have been interested in hearing different arguments. So I was thankful for this, brother. The last objection is in the area of church autonomy. The conventions, the Baptist Convention of Maryland and Delaware's Constitution says that we don't have ecclesiastical authority. That's church rulership, right? First Amendment type stuff, and being able to tell other organizations what to do. Our convention is composed of autonomous churches who can join autonomous um, associations, which are regional organizations. And then there are these state and national conventions that we affiliate with, and nobody really bosses anybody around. We all work together for common purpose, for common mission, and that's carried out through our giving to what's called the cooperative program. That's the primary reason why we gather together. It's not about, we're not a hierarchy. People don't tell us what to do. We're all autonomous. This is part of the reason why we get into rooms and we argue about things. And many times people look at that and they say, that's crazy. And why is it like that? And why don't they just get along? Well, this is how we get along. We express our opinions freely within this structure. So a number of people submitted, or I should say, a number of people said that they didn't want to vote for it. One brother who approached my co-author, Brad O'Brien, said that he had some issues. Brad rewrote the resolution. We came out with a better resolution. And because I think that when we cooperate together and we reason together, we wind up with a better result. This is not an ideological pushing one team against another. It's supposed to be all of us working together. So this new document, this new resolution, I think was much better. Brad gave an impassioned speech for why we need to support reform and support victims of sexual abuse. Some of the statistics that he shared is that stats are 1 in 4 women, or sorry, maybe it's 4 in 10 women have been sexually abused, and so 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men have been abused in their lifetime. And we want the church to be a place where people can say, hey, this has happened to me and I need help and support. I need to talk through this. I need to work through some life situations. I need counseling. I need resources. I need to escape. And we also believe that if sexual abuse occurs within a church, that it should absolutely positively immediately be reported and should be dealt with, that there should not be any kind of cover up. There shouldn't be any kind of forced reconciliation by the pastor. Sexual abuse is a crime against the state because individuals are citizens of the state, and so the state ought to be able to have its way to deal with the situation. And so we want to make sure that we're clear about that, and that things are handled properly. We also want to make sure that church volunteers and leaders are vetted, that there are procedures in place. And so we just want to make sure that our state is getting behind those efforts, and that would be an encouragement to our associations, which are more local, regionalized bodies. So here's how this resolution goes. I may scrap this entire video and start over again because I feel like it's just a giant rambling mess. But so I talked about what resolutions are. I talked about the way in which we revised our resolution and why that's positive. I'm going to just read this and walk through it real quick. Resolutions work on this structure. You state a number of whereases, right? Whereas, which is a statement of here's the situation that we're living through, and then you respond to those. You say, therefore, be it resolved, and then you state a number of resolutions. Okay, this is what we are going to do in response to this. So here's our resolution. You'll notice that there are 3 whereas comments, and then there are 5 resolved responses. Okay, so here it goes. Here's the text of it. Whereas we affirm the Baptist Faith and Message 2000, Article 15, which states in part, all Christians are under obligation to seek to make the will of Christ supreme in our own lives and in human society. We should work to provide for the orphaned, the needy, the abused, the aged, the helpless, and the sick. In order to promote these ends, Christians should be ready to work with all men of good will in any good cause, always being careful to act in the spirit of love without compromising their loyalty to Christ and his truth. And whereas the messengers of the 2021 Southern Baptist Convention in Nashville passed overwhelmingly the motion creating a task force for the purpose of an independent investigation. And whereas our brothers and sisters who are survivors of sexual abuse should be heard, honored, and cared for in a way that honors our Savior. Therefore, be it resolved. Okay, pause. 3 whereas, these are the conditions that we think result in these 5 resolved. Okay, these are 5 commitments that we should make. Now remember, they're not binding. They are of the overwhelming opinion of the majority of the messengers. Everybody reads this, they vote for it. We're good. We move on. Okay, so resolved. The Baptist Convention of Maryland and Delaware at our 2021 meeting declare that we affirm the Sexual Abuse Task Force's work for transparency regarding all matters of sexual abuse in our convention. And be it further resolved that the messengers of the 2021 Baptist Convention of Maryland and Delaware annual meeting call on the convention of churches to support victims of sexual abuse by exposing all forms of abuse through faithful teaching and preaching of God's word, by immediately and fully reporting every known case of sexual abuse to the proper civil authorities, removing from membership any church that knowingly perpetuates sexual abuse among its members or staff, and stand ready to offer holistic support to survivors of sexual abuse. Okay, so what we're saying there is that we teach and preach about this. We report when we learn, which is standard practice across every profession at this point in society. We remove any church that says, no, this is okay, and they're, any kind of weird or deviant theology. We're going to remove that, and we're going to offer support to survivors. So those are the things that we've resolved there. Be it further resolved that the BCMD executive director, staff, general mission board members, associational missional strategists, and directors of mission, those are all of our leaders, that they serve and encourage willing pastors and autonomous churches to commit to implementing the Southern Baptist Caring Well initiative to the fullest extent possible. In addition to the common practice of background checks and child protection policies, this initiative will serve our affiliated churches in protecting men, women, and children from the trauma of sexual abuse within the churches affiliated with the BCMD. And be it further Resolved that the messengers of the 2021 BCMD annual meeting request that the affiliation committee of the General Mission Board research the potential of requiring preventative measures like the Caring Well initiative, background checks, and child protection policies for a church to be considered in good standing with the BCMD. The committee should report its findings of, to the officers of the General Mission Board no later than 90 days prior to the 2022 BCMD annual meeting so that the officers of the General Mission Board can immediately make this report public to all BCMD churches in good standing. So what's being asked there is we're asking the group that determines who is and is not members of the Baptist Convention of Maryland and Delaware. What we want them to do is to look into whether or not we should be requiring that churches have child safety protection programs in place. We want them to investigate the implications of that. It would be very easy to say, yes, they should, and then vote something in and then discover that somehow we have harmed someone, or we've not given people proper time to come up to speed, or that we've somehow violated something else in our Constitution. It'd be very easy to vote on the floor. Yes, we want them to do that. Instead, what we want them to do is to plan, to research, and to recommend back. Any major change in this area would take this period of time that they've got to come back and report, and then changes to our Constitution and affiliation procedures would take at least 2 years. It is a good thing that we cannot make radical, dramatic, sweeping changes. It's good for organizational stability. On the other hand, sometimes needed reforms take time. And so any major changes is at least 3 years out. We're not asking that they do it. We're asking that they report on it and make a recommendation. So my co-author is on the General Mission Board of the Baptist Convention of Maryland and Delaware right now. He was just added, and so he's going to be there to work through this process, make sure that it's getting done, and make sure that the report reaches our meeting next year in a timely fashion. Okay, so they have to release a report 90 days before the next meeting, which gives us time to plan actions and to make plans for the next meeting. So that's 4 out of 5 resolved. If you stuck with me all this time, you are an amazing person. I have 2 more things to say. One is the 5th resolved. 5th resolved is this: that the messengers of the 2021 BCMD annual meeting request that the CFO, Chief Financial Officer of the BCMD, research ways to provide funding to help cover the cost of background checks and other measures seeking to prevent sexual abuse from occurring within churches. So we're asking a specific individual, our CFO, Tom Stoll, to look into supporting and helping churches in these kind of programs. One of the things that is a reality for churches is that if you have 10 people involved in caring for children, and background checks are $16 a pop. Sometimes they're less expensive. That's $160. And for a church that's smaller and has less resources, that might prevent a severe burden. Rather than a church get caught up in procedure and debates and asking whether or not this is necessary, rather than doing that, what we want is for churches to jump in, and we want them to say, we want to do this, and then we will come along and provide all the funding that they need. I've already told the churches of our association, if you need funding to do this, you call me, you talk to me. Do not let financial implications, like you can't get your budget committee is unreasonable and they won't approve funding for background checks, and you're like, I want to get this done, but I can't get the procedure passed. Come to us. We will give you the money and make sure that you can get this thing done. We want that on the state level. We're hoping that making this decision on the state level will help some of our other organizations put money towards that as well. We don't want anything to prevent people from putting this kind of program in effect. So the report is going to be submitted again 90 days before the annual meeting, and that means that that means that there would be time for prepping and planning. Now, I said in the very beginning, this is the last thing that I want to say, and then I'm going to sign off because I'm at almost 20 minutes, and I think I'm going to be at 25, and that's kind of a long update. What I said at the beginning is there are 2 ways to ask for the convention to accomplish business. Motions, which demand something, if they're voted on, has to happen. And then there's resolutions, which are not binding, which allow the organization to interpret it and to choose their path forward. So we passed this resolution. Now, I had a motion that I wanted to make on a completely different topic. I move that the administrative committee do these 3 or 4 things, and then that they should report back. They would have had to have done the thing that I was asking, right? Now, what happened at the very beginning of the meeting was our moderator for the meeting, the president, Dr. Harold Phillips, he called for new business, new resolutions, but did not call for new business. And so I didn't get my motion in, and I went to some of the officers and I said, hey, when is new business? When does that happen? And they were like, oh, there'll be time for that later, because that's what they genuinely thought. They didn't realize that new business had passed. Now, upon finding out that new business had passed, a number of them came to me and talked to me, and they said, sorry, you know, that you didn't get your motion in, and we're sorry. The parliamentarian, I don't know who he was or what his name is. He said, we can't go back. We've missed the opportunity to do that. And they were really sorry. They told me that they're committed to doing it. I wrote a long email this morning and I said, here's my motion, here's what I'm hoping that we can accomplish, here's why I wanted to put it in there, and I sent it off. But here's the issue. If we had gone with a motion, which is something that has more teeth, and we had missed the opportunity to introduce it yesterday, we would have nothing at this point. We would have to wait another year to take action on this. So by entering, which is technically weaker, we were able to pass something unanimously without objection. The brother who spoke up and said that he had issues with what we wrote originally voted for it. He stood with us. We love and appreciate that. That was super encouraging to me. So we actually made out better choosing the weaker path than choosing the stronger path, where we would have demanded. And mostly that comes down to a procedural error, which prevented any business from getting admitted to the docket. Now that's a problem that needs to be dealt with. I included that in my email, and I said, no, next time you need to make sure that you're clear on what the business of the day is. But whatever, I'm not hacked off about that. I'm super glad that we chose the method that we did, because it allowed us to get it onto the schedule of business and get things passed. So that's just an update for my churches. I'm thrilled with the way yesterday went. It's an amazing victory in terms of getting started in what happened yesterday is that the convention expressed its will and its desire to stand up and provide support for people who've suffered in this way, and to step up in terms of prevention. That's a tiny little piece. Now comes the harder work of deploying programs, of making information available to people, signing people up for trainings, making sure that 100% of our churches are trained in preventing, making sure that they govern childcare areas well, and there are procedures in place for staff, and making sure that everybody understands that it's a requirement under the law that they report if they know something. All these things need to be put into place, and so we've just scratched the surface. We've gone like the first inch of a journey that's a mile, and but I wanted you to know about that, and I'm going to stop talking now. God bless you, and I hope this is helpful.